It was Don't Leave Home, a creepy movie in Ireland. That's all I had. So I didn't know what it was about. I knew what it felt like. I knew what it sounded like, but I didn't know what it was about. And I think it was like the 15th draft when the haunted painting idea sort of came into play. And it was about the 43rd draft that we shot last year around this time.
So when you had just a tone and a feeling in mind, were there influences? Were there other movies or books or anything that specifically was kind of speaking to you influentially?
Yeah. I would say I wouldn't recommend starting with just the title and then nothing else. It was a nightmare. It was really hard.
It's the Roger Corman method. It works.
Yeah, for him. Good. It's proven to work for Roger Corman. It was, for me, it was like the Euro horror, the movies that aren't horror, but they're creepy and scary. So that semblance of being like 8 years old and watching, well, not Don't Look Now, not watching Don't Look Now when you're 8 years old, you probably shouldn't do that. But like, I don't know, there's films like The Night Digger, The Shuttered Window, things that are British, like, psycho thriller even. I don't even know if you call it thriller, but there are definitely a lot of, and then getting into, I don't know, dream logic cinema like Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure. Someone the other day said Vertigo. I'm not going to stand up here and say Vertigo of a movie I made, but things that sort of work on the dream logic level. So there's definitely a lot in there.
It has a little bit of Night Tide in there, actually. I was thinking that.
What is it?
Night Tide, the American indie from like the late 50s, early 60s, I think.
I have not seen that, Clay. Take me to Vulcan Video on Saturday, and we'll rent it and watch it together.
Yeah.
What do you see home as representing? Is it just like the place of safety that you should not leave, or is it like particular for the character in that journey?
Well, I mean, I do think one thing, it's like calling it Don't Leave Home, and the joke is that as soon as you leave the house, everything goes wrong. So to me, this is, in one way, it's kind of a spin on that of like, if you just, once you wake up, it all starts falling apart. I think it's that sense of, and then for me, there's definitely the art tone of you're trying to control the world and you can't control it. You can't control what people think of the stuff once you make it. Trying not to be too heavy-handed, but one way of looking at the title is it is that spin. And then there's the whole genre of the like, lady, don't go in the basement and think that terrible things are going to happen to you, frail white lady. You know, it's just the sort of history of horror cinema. So playing with that and also creating a world that actually didn't put someone in a gory state. And, you know, even when she's trapped at that one scene, I didn't want to see her hands tied down. I just wanted her to be vaguely drugged. I don't know. This was a really great answer.
It was very polite horror.
Polite horror, yeah. Polite. This movie is hereditary for old people who still go to church. We're going to put that on our poster.
I love it.
The main Irish actors are amazing. It felt like so much hinged on them. How'd you get them? And do you agree? Did they just really sort of
I agree. I do agree. Lalor, Roddy, the first one, John Wright, I don't know if anyone saw the movie Grabbers, the Irish movie where it's a really funny premise is there's like people, someone's seen Grabbers, okay, great. But it was like a small town where these demonic monsters are blood-sucking, and but alcohol kills them, so you have to get hammered. Because then when they would suck your blood, if you were drunk, they'd die. So I met the director of that at the London Film Festival, and I was inquiring about the Purig character, the butler, who's a stand-up comedian, David McSavage in Ireland, and my producer, he was also in that film. But he told me at a dinner, he was just like, yeah, he's funny, he's great or whatever, but he's like, if you're not beholden to names with your movie, you know, we all have to try to like get a cast to get our movie made. He's like, if you're not beholden to that, there's this guy Lalor Roddy who is just a magical wizard. And then I looked up a picture of him online, and my producer George Rush said he looks like a candle of David Byrne that's melting. But he looked like exactly like the character I was envisioning. And then very conveniently, Helena Bereen was another actress. She's in I Am Belfast, the Mark Cousins film, and they shared an agent, and he suggested her, and then I saw her eyebrows and thought she was perfect. But she also brought a lot to it, you know, working with... Lalor is the first, I think, real method actor I've ever worked with, and at one point, usually when you're making films, I don't know, I know there are a lot of filmmakers here, and you're kind of like, I think we got it. It's versus like, did we kill it? Did we get this take? Or it's in there. And there was a take with Anna Margaret and Lalor, and it was a 2-shot, and I was watching the monitor, and I sort of felt like I was watching the movie, which doesn't happen too often. And this was like his first day, and as we were walking back to position 1, I was walking back with him, giving him a note, and he just goes like, Michael. And he touched my arm, and he goes, that was good. I was like, oh shit, this guy knows when it's working and it's not working. So it was a real treat to work with a magical wizard like Lalor.
Melted David Byrne. David Byrne.
Did you think this was an allegory about something we're currently going through as a society?
I want to make stuff that I hope you can bring the viewer. For me, there is that in there, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about it, but I don't want to try to say this is what this is about. I think that doesn't work for me as a filmmaker. But the idea that anybody who, you know, the thesis, the opening statement in the film, it's like anyone who's praying to a symbol in this film, bad things happen to them. And ultimately, the idea that what I would hope people might take away is that, you know, the idea of God and heaven are here on earth and not out in some farcical cosmos, and we should live accordingly. So for me, it's a direct allegory about that. But if you think that sounds pretentious and that I'm talking out of my ass, that's fine too. And just the magical power of art. I think the idea you're trying to control and create something, and sometimes, yeah, our work is better than Edward Kazadi's shitty chronicle review of our film, you know? It can actually mean something to someone. So yeah, it's twofold for me, and then hopefully everyone has other my composer read the script and he's like, this is a metaphor for making the film. So like, well-dressed men, the Amadeus men are the investors, Shelley's the agent, he had it all mapped out, and I was like, yeah, that's not wrong either.
So the tone is very delicate.
Which is a really great, you know, it's great, he's really helpful to making movies, to make delicate movies. It's really...
Well, I mean, I must imagine you're sitting and editing, and you said it was, over 2 hours, your initial cut. Who do you talk to? How do you work with, I mean, in cutting it down, what's that process look like? Who are you working with?
The editor, Zach Clark, who's a great director in his own right. He made White Reindeer that was here a few years ago, and Anna Margaret, our star, is also... was the star of White Reindeer. That really is where you start, you know, when you get in the edit. But within a week, we went from 129 minutes to 105 minutes. And then, you know, from there, took it down 20 more. I don't know, I wasn't in here. I don't know if there's any humor. I was hoping, I feel like for me, there's a lot of humor, like just an older woman saying, I had a late lunch, was hilarious to me. I don't know if anyone laughed at that. But in the shorter the cut got, the humor came out of that, and that was just really surprising to me, because when I watched the long cut, I was like, where's the humor? And Clay had helped and watched a rough cut along the way, and we're getting closer. But it's really just working with collaborators. I think the key is finding people that you're making the same movie with. So many horror stories I hear about a rough cut that goes wrong, and then the producers start panicking and they fire the editor, and it's just like this horrible situation. The other day, our editor was talking to a investor supporter, and he just said, like, I feel like for this movie, it felt like everybody was the right person for their role in the film, from cast to investor to producer to editor, and that's something that is really rare.